Gilbert, Melissa, young celebrity, Hollywood survivor, the woman who finally learned to be herself after 60 years. From the first day of her story, which starts on May 8, 1964 in Los Angeles, California, nothing about it was typical. Within hours of her birth, she was placed for adoption, and actress and dancer Barbara Crane and actor and comedian Paul Gilbert adopted her the next day. Melissa was already living in Hollywood before she could walk, speak, or even comprehend the meaning of any of it. Later in life, she made no progress toward that world. She was born in the midst of it. Furthermore, the ties went beyond her adoptive parents. Harry Crane, the renowned television writer and producer who co-created The Honeymooners, one of the most significant sitcoms in American television history, was her maternal grandpa. For Melissa Gilbert, show business was not simply close by. It was the family business. It was the air she had been breathing since the beginning. She started working nearly right away. At the age of 2, she got her first job doing a commercial for Carter's baby clothes. A constant barrage of commercials and guest appearances followed, including an iconic Alpo dog food commercial with Lauren Green that went on to become one of her most well-known early appearances. Practically speaking, this meant that before she had a chance to distinguish between childhood and work, they became intertwined. For the majority of kids, the early years are a safe haven where they may play, study, and just be. Those years were already spent in front of a camera for Melissa Gilbert. However, neither the lighting nor the auditions were the most difficult aspects of her early years. It was the reality that her own family was concealing. Paul Gilbert, her adoptive father, passed away on February 13, 1976. Melissa was 11 years old. She was informed that he had passed away after a stroke for several years. She mourned within that explanation, carried it with her, and used it as the foundation for her comprehension of that loss. She discovered the truth much later. She was devastated to learn that her father had committed suicide, most likely as a result of ongoing severe physical suffering from wounds he had received while serving as a fighter pilot during World War II. She claims that after discovering the truth, she was unable to eat or sleep normally for months. The pain returned completely unaltered, but it was now encased in something even more oppressive than loss. It was shrouded in mystery. And as Melissa has stated in public, that type of wound does not remain silent. You are followed by it. Her home life had drastically changed by the time the reality finally caught up with her. When she was 6 years old, her parents separated. Her mom got married again. The public's happy perception of a lovely girl in a well-known family was becoming less and less accurate as the family mixed and the household became more complicated. From the outside, people could see a happy child leading a wonderful life. Adoption, divorce, secret anguish, and the weird, relentless strain of being continuously observed by millions of people were all issues that the girl living there had to deal with. The moment that completely changed everything then arrived. Melissa Gilbert tried out for a new NBC television show called Little House on the Prairie, which was based on Laura Ingalls Wilder's popular autobiographical novels in late 1973. According to some sources, some 500 girls were considered for the role of Laura Ingalls, making the competition remarkable. Melissa prevailed. She was 9 years old. On March 30th, 1974, the pilot was broadcast as a television film. In September of that year, the entire series debuted. Melissa Gilbert's life then began to take on a form that would last for the next 50 years. The show's creator was Michael Landon, who was already well known on television thanks to his lengthy tenure on Bonanza. On set, he became much more significant than a co-star or an employer because he had personally approved Melissa's casting. He started serving as a mentor, a manual. He became a father figure in many of the areas that were most important to a girl who had lost her father. His moniker, Half Pint, carried over from the television to the real world with ease, and viewers fully welcomed her in that persona. Between the ages of 9 and 18, she spent her whole childhood in front of the camera, appearing in 191 of the show's 205 episodes across 9 seasons, from 1974 to 1983. The schedule for filming was unrelenting. Production took place on studio stages and in Simi Valley 5 days a week. Melissa was carrying scenes in one of the most popular family dramas on American television, while kids her age were worrying about schoolwork and after-school plans because California law required child actors to acquire at least 3 hours of education every day. Her image got increasingly cemented as the show's popularity increased. The machine of weekly television faithfully presented the image of warmth, goodness, spirit, and pluck that America knew it needed from her, week after week, season after season. However, Melissa has been open about the costs associated with that image. Laura Ingalls is both an escape and a cage, according to her. The world of Walnut Grove was safer and simpler than the real world she lived in. Therefore, it was an escape. Fans, co-workers, and even those on set frequently appeared to forget that Laura Ingalls was a character, which made it a cage. Melissa was handled as though she really was that girl. Thankful, pure, well-behaved, and completely simple. Over the course of those 9 years, the divide between the audience's favorite child and the girl who was silently carrying her own confusion grew, and it didn't close when the cameras stopped filming. She was a teenage icon by the time the show concluded in 1983, and the subsequent television films concluded in 1984. For her dramatic performance in the movie Splendor in the Grass, she was nominated for a Golden Globe in 1981. Young Artist Awards has been given to her. Everywhere she went, people knew who she was. Even so, she was still unable to provide a complete response to the question that was beginning to cross her mind regarding the boundary between Melissa Gilbert and Laura Ingalls. She carried that fight throughout adulthood. She was more than Laura, as she had already demonstrated. At the age of 15, she was still in the midst of her Little House years when she went to New York in 1979 to perform as Helen Keller on an off-Broadway stage in The Miracle Worker. She had to be fully there in a character's suffering, frustration, and eventual victory in this physically and emotionally taxing part, which showed true bravery and versatility. It was a safe role, but she didn't pick it. It wasn't, which is exactly why she picked it. Throughout the 1980s, she continued to push in that direction. She portrayed Jean Donovan, one of 4 American churchwomen who were raped and killed in El Salvador in 1980, in the 1983 film Choices of the Heart. This part, which was based on a true historical tragedy, needed seriousness and restraint far beyond what a family television drama would require. She entered a tale of crime, terror, and treachery in Blood Vows, the story of a mafia wife in 1987. These were conscious decisions taken by a performer who fervently desired to be perceived as a complex actor rather than a child star who constantly recycled a single image. However, getting away from Laura Ingalls turned out to be much more difficult than landing the part in the first place. She starred in 2 adult television shows in the early 1990s, Sweet Justice on NBC from 1994 to 1995, and Stand By Your Man on Fox from 1992 to 1993. Both shows were canceled after brief runs. These were good opportunities on paper. In actuality, no new job could completely replace the one that had made Laura's face a part of American cultural memory, since the public still always saw Laura first. During this time, the emotional burden was increasing in ways that were not yet apparent to the outer world. In the 1980s, Melissa's personal life mirrored the turbulence she was attempting to avoid. She was a member of the Brat Pack, dating Rob Lowe in a widely reported relationship, hanging out at Hollywood parties with rock stars like Billy Idol, and pursuing freedom and a break from the stereotype of the prairie girl in any way she could. 7 weeks after breaking off her engagement to Rob Lowe, on February 26th, 1988, she wed actor Bo Brinkman. Their son, Dakota Paul Brinkman, was born on May 1st, 1989. Before the marriage ended in divorce in 1994, it became entangled in infidelity, substance abuse, and violent disputes. She doesn't feel nostalgic about those years. They are disorganized and extremely self-destructive, according to her. On January 1st, 1995, she got married to actor Bruce Boxleitner for the second time with a different type of hope. Their son, Michael Garrett Boxleitner, was born on October 6th of that year. He was purposefully named after Michael Landon, the man who had held a special place in her heart as a father figure. You can sense how much emotional weight she had given the fresh start just by looking at that particular aspect. She desired consistency. She desired safety. She wanted a house that truly felt secure. After 16 years of dating, however, they secretly parted ways in 2010 and finalized their divorce in 2011 due to ingrained habits. The Little House set was not the starting point of the substance abuse issues that characterize so much of this era. Melissa has been accurate in this regard. They arrived later, in her late 40s, with the onset of emotional pressure, familial hardship, and accumulated anguish. She started drinking to help herself go asleep after her grandfather passed away, and soon the habit got so bad that she was consuming up to 2 bottles of wine every night. During this time, she also misused pharmaceutical drugs. When she passed asleep while entertaining a friend while intoxicated in her dog's bed, it was the moment that ultimately compelled her to act. She turned to therapy and Alcoholics Anonymous as a result of the humiliation of that incident. And on April 1st, 2004, she achieved sobriety, a date she has proudly and openly maintained ever since. The act of honesty that fully destroyed the previous facade was her 2009 memoir, Prairie Tale. She sat down at the age of 45 and told the whole story, including the addiction, the failed marriages, the regretful plastic surgery, the deep insecurity she had felt for years next to what she described as Hollywood's beautiful people, and the enduring emptiness that lurked beneath years of praise and attention. The book was not a meticulously crafted autobiography of a famous person. It was a reckoning. It was significant because it accurately described the gap between the happy prairie girl whom America had cherished and the lady who had been leading that life. For the majority of her adult life, she had also been at odds with how she looked. Shortly after turning 18, she had a rhinoplasty. She was not thrilled with the first treatment, which prompted a second. Breast implants, Botox, fillers, laser treatments, and the entire array of cosmetic procedures that Hollywood subtly requires of its women followed. In retrospect, she has stated that her face got less recognizable the more she worked to make it better. She was trapped in a culture by her 40s that evaluated a woman's worth based on her dress size and how smooth her skin was under studio lights. She has talked about being pressured, both directly and indirectly, to stick to a size 2 or 4 if she wanted to stay competitive after decades in the industry. Around 2013, the true break occurred. On April 24th, 2013, she tied the knot in a small private ceremony at Santa Ynez Ranch in Santa Barbara with Timothy Busfield, an actor she had met by chance while seated at a counter at a Los Angeles pub in 2012. Instead of wearing white, she wore crimson. It was a deliberate decision. This was not an innocent tale. It was a tale of survival, experience, and another meticulous effort to create something durable. She then departed from Los Angeles. She claimed that because the city did not feel secure for her to age properly, she had to leave. They eventually made their home in a refurbished 14-acre former hunting cabin in the Catskills of upstate New York after originally settling in Michigan. She stopped dyeing her hair and allowed it to become gray on its own. She gave up fillers and Botox. In 2015, she decided that her breast implants were no longer appropriate for her desired lifestyle and were causing health issues, so she had them removed. She started cooking, gardening, spending time outside, and evaluating her days using completely different criteria. She claimed that she now saw herself in the mirror rather than a show. She founded Modern Prairie in 2022, an online community and lifestyle brand designed exclusively for women over 50, with the philosophy that aging is a reality to be accepted rather than a problem to be controlled. She wore minimal to no makeup when she was on camera. Menopause, hot flashes, body changes, and the liberation of no longer performing youth for an industry that never truly deserved her compliance were all topics she discussed candidly. She described her 60th birthday in May 2024 as the most amazing year of her life, claiming that she had earned every comment, scar, and opinion that accompanied it. The theme of health persisted throughout this subsequent chapter. A fractured back in 2001, a spinal fusion in 2010, and years of nerve pain traveling from her neck into her arms were just a few of the decades-long problems with her neck and spine. She had extensive surgery in November 2020 to fix failing discs in her neck and remove outdated hardware. At her Catskills cabin in June 2023, what seemed to be a routine insect bite on her left arm developed into a quickly spreading cellulitis infection with red streaks and an abscess that needed immediate intravenous treatment. Doctors warned her that it might have reached her system in a matter of days if she hadn't received treatment right away. Then, in 2024, she gave a name to what she had been dragging around in silence since she was a young child. Misophonia, a neurological disorder that results in severe, involuntary distress reactions to particular noises, was the diagnosis made for her. She recalled growing up on the little house set in the middle of the 1970s, sitting in school scenes as other kids tapped their fingers on desks or chewed gum, and experiencing an overwhelming wave of panic and anger that she was unable to control. For many years, she believed it indicated that there was a problem with her nature, that she was unstable, cruel, or somehow damaged. When she discovered in 2023 that it had a clinical name and was neurological rather than moral, it fundamentally altered her self-perception. She contacted the Center for Misophonia and Emotion Regulation at Duke University, underwent 16 weeks of intense cognitive behavioral treatment, and then shared her story publicly to advocate for increased awareness and funding for study. None of that was necessary for her to do. She made the decision because she thought her voice could make someone else feel less alone. The most devastating part of this last act then started in January 2026. Following an inquiry that began in November 2024, after twin boys who had acted as child actors on the Fox crime thriller The Cleaning Lady came forward with claims of sexual assault, Timothy Busfield was taken into custody. Busfield was charged on 4 counts of criminal sexual contact with a juvenile by a Bernalillo County grand jury in Albuquerque. The alleged activity occurred between November 2022 and spring 2024. He had repeatedly touched one of the boys inappropriately, according to the prosecution, and the boy's twin had also claimed mistreatment. The arrest warrant also mentioned a previous accusation involving a 16-year-old girl during an audition at Sacramento Street Theater, a Sacramento theater company Busfield had co-founded. Busfield recorded a video denouncing the claims and entered a not guilty plea. After being detained for almost a week, he was freed on his own recognizance after about 70 letters of support were submitted on his behalf. The tentative date for a jury trial is May 2027. Melissa Gilbert made an appearance on Good Morning America in early April 2026, some 2 months after the indictment. Lawyers had told her to keep quiet. Instead, she made the decision to face the camera and declare that Timothy Busfield was the last person on the planet to harm a child. She stated she trusted him with the life of her kids. The case was the most traumatic event of their lives, according to her. She talked candidly about initiatives under their Modern Prairie name encountering abrupt uncertainty as possible partners withdrew, friendships vanishing, and funds falling. She went on to add that even if Tim was completely cleared, he would still be that guy, and that for him, it was over, that he was canceled. She felt that the charge itself had already been inextricably linked to his name, something that no verdict could undo. The weight of that moment was nearly intolerable for those who had followed her journey. Seeing her overcome addiction, bereavement, divorce, and Hollywood's brutality before arriving at what appeared to be a calm, sincere third act. Because she was standing in the middle of the most painful and dark paradox of her life, a woman who had spent decades learning to see clearly. After all of this, what's left is something truly unique. Melissa Gilbert is a woman who was given a mythology when she was 9 years old. Over the course of the next 50 years, she painstakingly and honestly dismantled it, not to ruin its meaning for people, but to discover what was true below. In the important aspects, the lovely prairie girl was authentic. She always possessed the warmth, resiliency, and refusal to vanish, but so was the loss, the addiction, the hardship, and the protracted quest to see her own face in the mirror. Eventually, she located that face. She found happiness on a 14-acre cabin in the Catskills, with dirt from the garden beneath her fingernails, gray hair, and no Botox. What she does with it now, under the shadow of a court case that has completely changed her expectations for the last chapter, is a story that is still being written.